Homo sapiens. What an inventive, invincible species. It's only a few million years since they crawled up out of the mud and learned to walk. Puny, defenseless bipeds. They've survived floods, famine, and plague. They've survived cosmic wars and holocausts. And now here they are among the stars, waiting to begin a new life, ready to outsit eternity. They're indomitable. Indomitable. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the legendary The Ark in Space, written by Robert Holmes and directed by Ronnie Bennett. I've got the DVD file version of this. I don't actually own the main To Entertain version. I believe these are To Entertain as well. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, this is a 4-part adventure, and it's the second story with Tom Baker. It is also the first story to be produced under the reign of Peter Hinchcliffe, my personal favourite Doctor Who producer. And man, what a way to start! I mean, this is highly praised by not just the fan base, but just, it's Tom Baker's favourite story. It's also Russell T Davis's favourite classic Who story. And Stephen Moffat considers it the best Fourth Doctor story. So that's a big bar to live up to. This is just so... Man, Tom Baker has a very great start with the robot, which is just pure fun, and now with the Ark in Space. However, I will admit, I am a tad disappointed, not in the story itself, but in terms of behind the scenes. For you see, Robert Holmes wasn't actually signed to write the Ark in Space. It was originally going to be written by John Lugarati, yes, the writer who wrote some of, if not the best Doctor Who stories during the First Doctor era, including my personal favourite, the Aztecs. So, something happened which made it impossible for his version to be released. So, Robert Holmes had to do a very heavy rewrite, and apart from the very basic premise of the Doctor and the crew go onto an Ark with people hibernating, and there's an alien that's attacking. It is completely different, apart from that basic premise. Now, going from that, you might notice that it sounds a lot like... the story is a lot like Alien. In fact, when growing up, I always thought, because a lot of Fourth Doctor adventures, as I probably mentioned back in my robot vlog, that a lot of Fourth Doctor stories are actually based off other stories. And I always thought this was based off Alien. The main villain are these things that get into humans and then slowly they become them. And you've got a very small group of people who have just woken up from hibernation. And the plot is very similar, and I always thought that this was taking inspiration for it. However, this story came from 1975. Aliens didn't come out until 1979. So this might be the inspiration for Alien. Ridley Scott has actually had some history with Doctor Who. He was originally signed up to design the Daleks, which I don't think his ideas were ever used, but it's just a really cool fact. I'm getting completely distracted now because I'm talking about Alien. But the Ark in Space, let's get into this. So the story starts, the first episode is very atmospheric because we get a lot of empty rooms and not a lot of people or characters in it. Literally, we only have, in terms of characters, our main three with the Doctor, Sarah, and new companion Harry Sullivan from the robot getting onto here. Now, I really love this dynamic of these four. I love how Harry Sullivan, he's just a bumbling idiot, but and he doesn't have like any purpose in terms of the plot, but he's such a charming, innocent young lad that you kind of you don't mind him, and his chemistry with Tom Baker, Ian Martin is a fantastic actor, and with them two you really feel like that they are growing as friends. There's a brilliant scene in part one in which they have to hide underneath the table as a electrical device is like defending the ship because they've activated the defense system. And the Doctor discovers as well that some wires have been cut or bitten through, and so there's a mystery into it and a thing. In terms of actual plot, not a lot happens. Not just in this episode, throughout most of the story. It's a very basic plot, but it works well because of its atmosphere and it's perfectly... do you know like how old horror films have that really eerie, slow pace to them? But actually works for the story, and if you're in the mood, it really sets well. This is Doctor Who successfully doing that. So Sarah Jane, she kind of gets caught up in this device, which makes her part into like a coma. She starts hibernating with the rest of these humans that they find. And the Doctor and Harry are walking around, and you get some really iconic dialogue. Hold on, let me get the book. And this is one of my favourite lines. "Your mind's beginning to work. It's entirely due to my influence, of course. You mustn't take any credit." Yeah, he says that when he's talking to Harry, as Harry says something that the Doctor catches his eye. So you got some really great banter between the Doctor and Sarah Jane. Now, important thing to note, I don't think I mentioned this in Robot, but Tom Baker's first series, he's a lot more positive and smiley all the time compared to later on in his run as the Doctor, where he's just bonkers. Here he's just constantly grinning, he's constantly cheerful, and he has some great moments when in part 2 onwards he gets introduced to some of the crew there, and he's just grinning along, and there's some great bits where something's happening and he's just smiling about and is like, "Come on everyone, let's go on to it, it's no problem at all." Yeah. So they get introduced to this female character, who I'm ashamed to say I can't remember her name. She's like a medical officer. She's a great character. I just can't remember her name. I don't know. I can't remember if it's probably like a scientific-y name or something. And she introduces them to their captain, Noah, who doesn't believe that they are there with good intentions. So he goes and tries to see the Doctor, who he stuns him because he's tampering with some of the systems. Because the Doctor suspects that something's living in the system. Something is trying to sabotage them. So Noah then goes down into basically the space basement, and he gets touched by this green ooze, which slowly starts turning him into something. Now this is an important note, or at least to me anyway. A lot of Doctor Who stories have that one effect which might ruin the experience. It's like with comic books, where there's always that one face that's drawn really strange. With Doctor Who, it's special effects, and this one is very unavoidable with it's got like green. The guy's supposed to have like this like fungus that's turning him into like a strange insect creature. How they propose to do that is just have him have green bubble wrap wrapped around his hand, and slowly it takes part rest of his body. And whilst this is going on, they discover that somebody else who used to be there, who was one of the first people to wake up, has actually turned into a full-on slug thing. And this thing looks really ridiculous. It looks like part of the human anatomy. It looks like foreskin. It looks like a sentient foreskin just plobbering around the ark. Now, if you can get past the silly effects, which might ruin it for you, the actual idea behind this monster is very great, and it works very well. It's very suspenseful as Noah is slowly turning into this creature that's taken over his mind, and you get some really great creepy scenes, like how the characters are like that person, the first person's gone missing. I can't remember his name. And then Noah is like, "What are you talking about? I'm standing right here." And he's smiling at, and then he like figures out, he's like, "I must stop something. I must bypass all the safety guidelines or something." And he wanders off. And the idea that he's turning into this insect, and really slowly as well, it reminds me a lot of The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, where he's like slowly turning into a bug. But here it's something taken over his mind, and it happens really slowly, and it's really eerie, and it's very creepy. And the Doctor actually describes it as generally being eaten alive. And what makes the story really work as well is that it rips Doctor Who to its basics. Like, even the look of the set of the ship is a very basic look, but it lets our main three characters stand out, as they are the ones with the big personality. And you've got this villain which is just bright green, that works very well, and our side characters are a bit basic, but it's detrimental to the story. So yeah, and the plot is very simple. It's literally just some guy turning into an insect trying to kill everyone else. I mean, you can't rip it too bad to its more, so this video is probably going to be much shorter than intended. So yeah, if you just look at the story as a script, it might not even be considered great. You know, it's very basic, but it really, really works, because you get interested to these characters. You feel for Noah as he's slowly turning into this beast, and you can see him fighting. And as well, you get Tom Baker, Elizabeth Sladen, and Ian Martin just being so charming and not understanding anything really that's going on. One of my favourite scenes is the Doctor has basically like a mind meld with a part of a Wirran, whilst some of them are attacking through the door. And after the Doctor knocks out of it, he literally just walks forward and has to be stopped by Sarah and Ian. Sarah and Harry Sullivan. Sorry, Ian Martin is the actor. They have to stop him from going into it. It's very small detail. If it was any other writer or any other director or actor, that would have been like the main focus of the camera, but it's not. It's mainly about the battle with the humans and the Wirran. The great thing about the Wirran as well is that their appearance is spared. They don't have a lot of screen time, which means that when they do pop up, you're anticipating it. You're eager to try and see them and trying to work out what's going on with the Doctor. So, yeah, story very well. I can't describe it very well. It's a hard story to describe why it works so well. But it just does. Just go watch it, The Ark in Space. There's a great scene in which Sarah Jane has to take a plug to one side of the room to another by going through the pipelines, and she gets stuck. And the Doctor's on the other side, and he says, he's basically like, come on, Sarah, and Sarah can't because she's stuck. So he basically insults her, and is like, I knew you couldn't do it. I knew that you would have messed this all up. And Sarah Jane, being absolutely pissed at him, just through pure willpower, gets through it. And when she comes out there, the Doctor's like laughing at her and helps her out. And is like, I'm very proud of you, Sarah. Only you could have done that. Well done. So, yeah, using Sarah Jane's, I won't say ego, but her self-appointment, I don't know, against her. It's one of, I think it's Russell T Davis's favourite classic Who scene. But yeah, so the tension keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and more whirring come out, especially in their final form, in which they can only be really killed by just basically annihilating them, or by electricity. And they look like giant bugs, and they do kind of look ridiculous, but they are shot very well. They're constantly in the dark, and that voice, man, that voice is so cool. However, the Overwarens go onto this ship on which the Doctor and another guy who's in the Ark set it off, and this guy sacrifices himself to save the Doctor, and the ship blows up. And yeah, very great ending. I'm not doing a very good job here, I do apologise. It's a very hard story to describe why it works so well, but trust me, it does. But here's an interesting thing to note at the end of the story. They don't actually leave via the TARDIS. There's this like transmat that leads straight to Earth. The Ark, I completely forgot to mention, is basically what happened was that the Earth was due to be attacked by a solar wind from the sun. So humanity got onto this Ark, hibernated, waited until, I think they said 500 years, until the Earth is habitable again, and then they were going to go back onto Earth. But something happens with the transport that only allows 3 people to go, and so the Doctor, Sarah and Harry, they use the teleporting system to go to Earth, leading into our next story. So yeah, that's the Ark. Fantastically written adventure. Yeah, I can't really describe why this one works so well. It just does. Just do watch it. It's a bit of a slow burner. If you don't like slow stories, if you don't like old-fashioned horror, maybe it's not for you. But for the majority of you, I think you would have a blast. So that's The Ark in Space. So join me next time where we get a 2-part adventure. We see what Earth looks like after massive solar flares, and the Doctor encounters another of his greatest foes. So join me next time for the Sontaran Experiment. See you then on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.